In the latest chapter of One Piece, we finally understand why Oda has held off on letting Zoro replace the Sandai Kitetsu all this time. The spotlight was on Zoro's intense battle against Kinsei Maboku. A clash so explosive it had the entire room on edge. And the moment their haki collided, both warriors immediately recognized something. The swords in their opponents' hands were Kitetsu blades. Ever since the Wano arc, Zoro has had his eye on the Sandai Kitetsu, the second-ranked blade in the cursed Kitetsu line. He mentioned it outright during his time in Wano, clearly intrigued. But despite fighting Kaido, surviving hellish battles, and even brushing shoulders with legendary bladesmiths, Zoro never got the chance to lay a hand on it. And that's the mystery. Why didn't Oda let Zoro upgrade his sword when everything lined up perfectly in Wano? The answer, it seems, is finally unfolding in the current arc. Now is the moment Zoro is truly ready for the final upgrade. The reveal of the Shodai Kitetsu, the original and strongest of the 3 cursed blades, signals that Zoro is on the verge of completing a set of legendary swords. Right now, he's already wielding 2 of the 21 great grade swords. Enma, the blade that once belonged to Kazuki Oden, and Wado Ikemanji, the sword tied to his promise with Kuina. He's only missing one final blade, a supreme grade sword, the highest possible class. That's where the problem with the Sandai Kitetsu comes in. No matter how iconic it is, the Sandai isn't even considered a great grade sword. It doesn't belong in the same league as the other 2. Even if Zoro were to forge it into a black blade, its fundamental rank remains too low. It simply can't compete with the elite weapons used by the world's strongest. Think about it. Have we ever seen legends like Roger, Rayleigh, or Heimlich wielding low-grade blades? Of course not. Every top-tier fighter in One Piece is known to carry a supreme grade or at least great-grade weapon. Their swords are not just tools, they're symbols of power and legacy. So if Zoro truly wants to become the world's greatest swordsman, his swords need to reflect that title. At least one of them must be a supreme grade blade, and the Shodai Kitetsu fits the bill perfectly. But here's the emotional hook. Zoro and the Sandai Kitetsu go way back. It's not just some random sword. It's the one that helped him survive the Grand Line. The one that symbolized his growth from a mere bounty hunter to a real pirate swordsman. It represents his bond with the sword itself, the idea of will and compatibility between blade and wielder. So replacing it isn't something you can do lightly. That's why Oda has set up the perfect solution in this new arc. The only way fans will accept the change is if the Sandai Kitetsu breaks, shattered after repeated clashes with Maboku's sword. That way, when Zoro defeats Maboku and claims the Shodai Kitetsu, the transition feels earned, powerful, and inevitable. Some fans have pointed out that the Shodai looks too long for Zoro to use comfortably. But in One Piece, swords seem to adjust themselves to their wielder. For example, Enma looked perfectly sized when held by Oden, who was nearly 4 meters tall, but when Zoro received it, the blade seemed to fit him perfectly. So we can safely assume that sword proportions are flexible in this universe. Ultimately, Oda is building up to a major moment. Zoro's journey has always been about growth. Not just in strength, but in mastery, discipline, and symbolism. If he's going to stand at the top of the sword world, then his blades need to stand with him. And taking up the Shodai Kitetsu would mark the moment Zoro steps fully into that role.